Hello, everyone. I am introducing the first part of our next writing project, and it does have to do with fairy tales, but more specifically, we are going to be writing fractured fairy tales, and you'll learn a bit more about that tomorrow. So, through Friday, you are going to be participating in various writers' workshop activities, and then on Friday I'll introduce the assignment and you'll start on the following Monday. So today we're going to start off with learning about the elements of a fairy tale story. So we've done a lot of work with narrative structure and we're going to build on that. We are going to be looking at the elements of fairy tales that are more specific to the fairy tales we see, although these elements can be in stories that are not fairy tales. So as we go through, we're just going to think about these questions. What is a fairy tale? What makes it different from other traditional stories? And what are the special characteristics found in fairy tales? Or you could interchange elements for special characteristics. Let's take a look at some more well-known writers of fairy tales. Hans Christian Andersen, he was doing lots of writing. He was born a long time ago. You'll recognize some of his stories as you can see named on the screen. And also the Brothers Grimm. They lived even longer ago and they collected fairy tales from Germany and wrote them down for people to read. And they are known for Hansel and Gretel, Snow White, Cinderella. So we're going to learn, and what it says that they wrote them down is because that fairy tales start off as oral tales and they are passed down from generations to generations all around the world. And so there are several different versions of the same story. So, for example, there are over 200 versions of Cinderella from all over the world. And I want you to think about how can there be so many versions? And think about how before they were written down to become what we know of them today, think about how they can change. Think of the game Telephone and how that kind of same concept may apply to fairy tales. So here are some well-known fairy tales that you probably recognize and can name more of these. I want you to kind of take a moment and think about what is similar between them and what is different. And then we'll get on to learning about the different elements. So they were a short story and they're passed down through word of mouth, and they were often for children either for entertaining or telling them a message, teaching them something, and a lot of them came from Europe. And let's look at some of the characteristics. So often they have a special opening or ending phrase that are very common. As you may know, if you were to say, tell me a fairy tale, you probably start with once upon a time. And they often end with happily ever after. The characters seem to be good characters or bad characters, and they seem to be pitted against each other. So there is a good character with exceptional qualities that must struggle against an evil character. And often honesty and cleverness is rewarded, and a foolish person or someone with evil intentions are punished in fairy tales. Often, they were told to teach children the difference between right and wrong. There is also the element of royalty. There's often a royal character or someone that marries into royalty. Think Cinderella marries into royalty. And a castle or royal palace is often present. Magic is a big element. It's usually there too, and of course, all of these elements, they are not a must-have, but they are very common and often seen in most of the elements are found in fairy tales. Characters may be placed under a magic spell, held by or helped by magical creatures. Think of Beauty and the Beast. The Beast has been placed under a spell by the witch. Fantasy characters. So, fairies are not usually present, but they can be present in fairy tales. And there often are magical or legendary creatures. You hear lots of goblins and dragons and other such creatures. There's often a problem and a solution. So characters may be put to a test that they need to complete, a problem will arise, and it'll be solved by the qualities, the good character, or by the helping of a magical creature. So this is very similar to where we look at our narrative structure, the rising action, and then there is a big problem that needs to be solved. Beauty is also another common theme. We're talking about rich or poor, royalty or not. And if you think of Snow White, the jealousy that comes with the stepmother being very envious of Snow White's beauty. 3s and 7s, so often there are 3 of something or 7 of something. You know, there may only be 3 days to complete a task. You know, think of the 7 dwarves. Just common numbers that are used in fairy tales. So, I just went over the elements, and you want to be able to identify them in stories. So now that we have gone through the elements of fairy tales, you're going to go to the blog website for the day plan and pick 2 of the stories that are listed there and read them. You are going to complete the same thing for both of your stories. So you need to write what the story you chose here, and then you are going to read it and simply click yes or no. So, setting. Is it a long time ago or a distant setting? If it's a fairy tale, it probably would be yes. If it was no, then click no. If you cannot tell for whatever reason, pick to your best ability. Characters, good characters and bad characters. Remember, this is an element of fairy tale, so if it has it, click yes, no. Same with the problem. Is there a conflict between the good and bad? Are there magical, royalty? And is there a message that kind of tells a story at the end? So you are checking or writing a Y or N in all of these, and at the end, make a conclusion. Is it a fairy tale or not? If you have lots in the yes column, probably yes. If it has no, probably no. And then explain here. This can also be done in a form that is linked on the website. And then move on to the second story that you are choosing.